Huge thank you to CIBC for making We Get It possible. Welcome, everyone. It's me again, Karine Shelley-Ford, Program Director with Young Adult Cancer Canada. Welcome to this new episode of We Get It. We Get It comes on live on Facebook every Monday at 7 Eastern PM. And we also have all our episodes on YouTube where you can actually catch them with closed captioning out there. So hopefully you can catch up on whatever you missed weeks before. But today, I'm super happy. I'm with Tom Masterson, and together we're going to talk about, well, a lot of things, but definitely the focus of our episode today is around caregiving. At YAC, we call people supporters. So often we'll have supporters and survivors, and then supporters are young adults supporting another young adult going through cancer. And so today we're going to spend some time talking about that. So I'm pumped. To put a little bit of context, like we do every week, I'm in my home office on a very clear day. So it's not sunny, but it could almost look like it is in my face, but it's not, but it's quite white out. I'm wearing my hair down because I washed them today, Tom. So when I wash my hair, I wear them down. When I don't, they're usually up hiding. And once again, put on some of my favorite jewelry, some of my favorite jean jacket. That's kind of me for today. And Tom, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Um, we've connected. I was trying to remember this morning. I don't remember. I feel like it's been a few years, like five
Yeah,
or six. Could it be?
it was a couple years ago. I mean, I've only been at this business for just over 2 years,
Oh, wow.
and one of my investors, and I know you wanted me to give a brief introduction of like who
Yes.
I am, what I look like in a second, but the connection was my good friend Kingsley is friends of Jeff's, and so when I was going about starting this company, he immediately made that connection, as all good MBA graduates do. Connection. And he immediately threw me to Jeff, and Jeff connected us, and that was a birth of a good friendship, I think. Like we had never met each other in person, but hell, I like so I'm thrilled to be on the show. I think it's going to be fun.
You.
To match what you were describing earlier, you're fortunate enough to have hair to wash. I'm a big bald white guy sitting in my parents' basement, which sounds a lot more pathetic than it actually is, I think. I got a big old beard. I try not to wear headphones because I look too much like Joe Rogan when I do, and I don't want to be thought of in that way. And yeah, it's Vancouver has gone through all 4 seasons in the last few days. I'm out in Vancouver. It was snowing about 4 days ago, then beautiful sunshine, and now we're devolving into our full-on brand image of just rain for the next 2 weeks is what it's looking like. So, can't complain about rain in February, though, in Canada. I think that's pretty okay.
Yes, and it is classic. We've actually had similar in Newfoundland this week where we had snow and then freezing rain and then rain, all in the same 24 hours. So shoveling last night after 9 hours of work was not fun. It was heavy as shit, but it's done. I can see the concrete on, the stat, la stat, at least in French. Welcome. Enough babbling. Welcome. Thank you for being here. So let's dive into what we're going to talk about. So for those of you who don't know YAC as much, all of our programmings at YAC, we've always had them open to supporters. So, for example, when someone with cancer was coming to an event of ours, attending a retreat or a conference, they could bring along with them a supporter, as long as that supporter was a young adult. So, to this day, at events, young adults cannot come with their parents. They can't bring their moms or dads, even though parents are super central in supporting their child or young adult through cancer. It had to be a young adult. And this, for us, was really important because, as we're going to talk about, Tom, and I know I don't have to convince you, supporters of our community members, they go through a lot. And I know cancer in our world is like 1 in 2 people, so it's very common experience, sadly. But when it comes to young adults, and so young adults supporting another young adult, I do feel like there are some unique issues that we see in our community, and we want to support our supporters. We want to be there because cancer doesn't only impact the person going through it. Of course, that's the person at the center of everything. The supporters go through a lot of shit wanting to be there. So I'm super happy that we're going to spend the next little while talking about that. Um, what is your take when we talk about caregiving and supporters?
Yeah, I tend to look at this actually through the supporter lens, even though we have a caregiver focused company. My entire experience that grounded me in this space was actually when my mom was caring for her dad with dementia. And that is like an ultra common and almost like trivialized form of caregiving where people kind of just expect it to be handled. And that's kind of that. It was doubly so in our family. My dad's actually a surgeon at BC Children's Hospital, and my mom's a registered nurse. So when she really struggled with that, that was a big light bulb moment for me. Was like, oh wow, there's a big social aspect to this. Because if it was just medical, like our family's never had an issue with dealing with a medical problem. But when the social things that come out beside that medical problem that's adjacent to that, we really struggled. And my own point of view from that, at the beginning of her experience, I was living in Boston, and I was pretty ineffective from Boston. I could talk to my mom on the weekends, blah, 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 the kind of things that are normal, like when even just in friendships and relationships, maintain them across a distance. You're pretty much limited as to what you can do without that in-person interaction. But then I moved home and I still stunk. And that was the part that was really awful and like set me, like made me obsessed with this, was that, you know, it would be 3 days after my mom needed help with something, I'd find out about it. And I had just been sitting on the couch that day, like doing jack. And that to me was like the really brutal piece of this experience, is that there are lots of people out there that would have wanted to support my mom as she was going through this process of caring for someone she loved. But very few people kind of had the playbook to know what to do. Like, and to have not only the knowledge and the skills, but the information in real time of what type of things that my mom was actually dealing with that day, that week, that month. And so all this well-meaning, you know, genuine offers of support that would come in to say, let me know if I can do anything, kind of just faded into the background. And that's the broken piece of the system that we're trying to fix. And so I focus a ton on how do we make it easy, accessible, reasonable for somebody to pitch in this situation, regardless of whether they're, you know, in the same apartment building or on the other side of the world. And I think that's the piece where if we can let the whole grassroots response around people come back, even in a digital global world, we'll be in a lot better space. So that was my long-winded answer around how I think about this space.
I love it, man. No, I love it. And as I'm listening to you, and one of the things that really got me, and we'll talk about Blue and the company that Tom is mentioning, that we'll spend some time talking about it. But for me, in our first connections and chats over the phone, one of the things that really kind of was so striking is that one of the most common thing I've observed in our supporters within the ACT community is, as you are helping someone and as you are supporting and taking care of someone, asking for help for yourself or even for the situation, it's not an easy reflex that our supporters have. They don't want to make it about their needs or themselves. They really are focused on the person who needs support, and to their detriment often. And I'm not saying this, there are nobody I talk to are martyr of like, poor me. It's just that they get into this, you know, keeping going and not asking for help. And sometimes a lot of people will say, I wish people kind of just did it because I don't even know what to ask for. I don't know who to ask. And this is hard, and it can last for a long time, and people burn out.
No, the emotional strain on the person at the center, whether that's a caregiver and that patient or a self-managed person who's providing that care for themselves is tremendous. And there's a lot that's in there that we just haven't paused and taken a breath to like understand what like modern infrastructure and culture and norms have done to that experience of asking for help. If you think about the most common communication channels we use now, it's never been more like shouting from a podium than it is right now. And if you're in that vulnerable space, like there's so much psychology at play in, do I really want to make this that public? That's one piece. Do I really want to be asking all these people all at once every single time?
Yeah.
Whereas if we went back in time 50 years, it's like, you know, you show up at the general store that everybody in town goes to the same one looking haggard. And they're like, Tom, are you okay? And you actually have to have a conversation instead of just ignoring the text message or, you know, like texting back like the thumbs up, like I'm all right. And that is such a bogus way to understand how somebody is actually doing when it, especially when it comes to dealing with a severe disease. And that is the part to me that is like really, that's the puzzle that I was going to say enjoy solving. I'm kind of addicted to solving it in a funny way, or in a serious way, funny, serious, whatever that like that little, that nest in between funny and serious is, that's where I like to live. But yeah, what a terrible experience asking for help in 2020, 2021 is. Like, what an awful experience. Sending out a text message, not knowing when you're going to get a response. Ugh.
Yeah.
Ugh. Like, we shouldn't live this way.
I know. And interpreting silence and often it's the same. Like I've heard so many stories in our community, but sometimes people will say, well, the people I thought were going to show up for us didn't. The people I would have never thought, they were cooking lasagnas and dropping stuff and offering to take the kids and that those kinds of things. To your point, you're not going to text the person you never thought could help you. You're going to text those you, and so then relationships, there's all kinds of things that get tangled up in the cancer experience for both survivors and supporters.
Yeah, maybe that one pal from yours in university grew up with a sick parent and you just had no idea that they literally just know what to do.
They get it.
And I've like, what you said just there is like the one piece of this experience that routinely breaks my heart because I think it's not true. It is true, but it's more of a misunderstanding than something with ill will. Is like failure to show up for somebody. You know, I really don't like that language, in that I truly believe, and what we've seen so far on the journey that we've been on, is that people are more than willing to quote unquote show up, but they need to know what to do. They need some guidance. And, you know, most people, caregiving or people who are dealing with disease are not brought up in such a way that they're very well trained in letting people into those intimate details of their lives, like on a daily basis, and asking for help all the time. We're trained like from the day we're, you know, growing up, like, oh, to succeed, you are independent and make yourself financially sustainable. And when you're robbed of that by, you know, genetics or exposure or injury or anything like that, and suddenly you have to go and assume this role that you were never told was going to be part of your life. That is so tough to do properly. Nobody goes to school to be a family caregiver or a cancer patient.
No.
And schools don't even teach us how to do our taxes, let alone care for ourselves. and so, like, wow, do we need to really rethink the idea that people don't show up? We need to say, like, people didn't do lots of stuff until it was made easy for them. Like, were people ordering online before Amazon? Like, not really. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, one click and it shows up in your door in 48 hours. My mom uses Amazon and she like will not shop online anywhere else. That's the one place she'll do it. And the behavior change has to be like centered on making it super fluid, where everybody who is willing to support is given the chance to support. Not not like expected to offer. Give them like a discrete moment. Like, you know what? Somebody picking up groceries today would be awesome.
Mhm.
And having that match somebody's normal cadence of life, like something that knows like, oh, well, this person is going to the store anyway. And all of a sudden we can just pass that little duty off to them and they make a difference. That's the type of world we need to live in. And we don't right now. And it's
Yeah.
tough. It makes tough, like really tough for people.
Excellent, excellent, wicked good point. Like we've had those conversations, and I think sometimes I understand the hurt and I understand the miscommunications and the discomfort and the fear. Like it's scary. Cancer is scary. So sometimes people don't know how to help, or for all kinds of reasons that we might not know, will take a certain distance because they can't cope. But I think there is definitely that category of people who would definitely do things if they knew what to do. And asking, often we hear, oh, people say, let me know what I can do to help, which then it puts the burden back on the supporters or the person with cancer. And sometimes I think the question is literally intended as it said, let me know. I don't know what to do, but I want to help. And that's where Blue come in, I find.
I think the majority of the time you're right. And some people just want a way to help that relieves them of that responsibility. If we can make helping someone as easy as shopping on Amazon,
Yeah,
like, well, because the idea that somebody wouldn't do that for someone they know, like, is kind of ridiculous. Even if you're not comfortable being in the room, somebody's got a nasal gastric tube in, and that makes you like really uncomfortable. Like you just get the button pushed, or you don't want to see a colostomy bag. I get that. I was raised like by a penis doctor, so I'm not really gun shy about this stuff. But like, I totally understand why people are hesitant to get involved in those scenarios. But like, this needs to be reframed in a way where supporting someone doesn't mean bedpans and tubes and blood and vomit and piss. It like could just mean talking on an audio only phone call. It could be like, taking care of a kid or something for an hour. Like, it's not anything. It gets drummed up in people's head as this like, I'm going to be a doctor for 45 minutes when I show up at the house. No, you're not. They don't want you to.
No, they don't. No, you're right. So let's talk about Blue, because I want people to know and understand that this exists, because I love the kind of parallel you just did between, we shop online now all the time. Could we find a similar way to ask for help that is not heavy, hard, complicated, and that
Right.
facilitates our lives? Tell us about it. What is Blue, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, it's probably getting to the point where people know the space we play in, but the general idea behind Blue is those families and individuals who are lucky enough to have that one person that does quote unquote step up. They manage the spreadsheet and like maybe a Facebook group or something terrible like that. They're all utterly manual. Well, what if we created an assistant that was literally something you could talk to, like your text messaging, your own executive assistant, or talking to it through your Google Home or whatever. And in every moment where you need support, you can just ask Blue, which is this little robot dog. Like, it's a blue and white and yellow border collie looking robot thing is what we designed it as. It's meant to be like herding people and whatever. And you just ask Blue to get it done for you, and Blue will go out, and rather than you repeating that request for support however many times it takes, which most people, I wish I had research on this, but I'm guessing most people give up after they ask like twice. I would guess it's like probably 2 or 3 times, maybe once.
Depending on the ask, yeah, maybe once and then you're done.
Yeah. So Blue allows you to invite a larger sort of team of people who can help you through all these moments, local and at a distance. And Blue will actually be able to facilitate one-to-one conversations with each of those individuals. And the advantage is saves you a heck of a lot of time, saves you asking that awkward question however many times in a row that you would even be willing or able to ask it. And instead, Blue takes on all those conversations at scale with your community of people in such a way that like it will find the most likely people to ask first, and then find out which one can actually do it and deliver to you that little aspect of support. So for a lot of it, Blue is about finding a willing volunteer from your own private network. You invite your friends and family. It also allows for fundraisers, and those are targeted against specific things. So people, if they're not comfortable taking money, can raise money for whichever nonprofit gives them Blue. It could be a hospital, it could be something like Yak, for example. And if they don't want to take somebody else's money, forward it on to Yak, and that's sort of like part of it. But a lot of the time, these diseases do disrupt your ability to hold an income, and it costs you extra money to pay for devices, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And quite often, what you're doing by raising money around those particular moments is you're giving effectively your people who aren't necessarily comfortable or able to support you in person the opportunity to view it almost like a cancer gift registry or something like that, where they're able to actually chip in on those moments where money is indeed the answer to some of these problems.
Yeah.
And like, as an example, even in the cancer space, it's like not a young adult or anything, but we had somebody buying meal replacement shakes for a woman with breast cancer in Toronto, and the person buying the shakes was in Italy. And it was like, okay, cool. Like, this is really neat. We're able to like actually engage that person's global network in a really easy way. And so that's the type of power that Blue has, is to really just reinvigorate that grassroots response and like reimagine the idea of a community. Used to be like your friends and family that live really close to you. Well, that's not true anymore. So how do we do your friends and family that are scattered everywhere? Yeah. And this digital assistant is our solution to get that really operating in a really seamless way.
This is really neat. So concretely, for those who are wondering, it's an app. It's an app where you can add. So basically, it's all nicely done and easily done, but you can add networks. So you can add people that you know that are in your close and not so close environment. And then through all the ways you have to kind of implement certain things, you can get some support and some help. Sometimes it was something as simple as grabbing a few extra groceries at the end of the day, or something more substantial, which I love that, which might mean, okay, we need help for meals. And then someone is going to say, I'm going to pay for your HelloFresh or whatever meal box for 6 months. And then to have those kinds of ask, it's not you asking, it's eventually Blue doing it for you.
That's right. And sort of, there are a few things that are like on top of that, is that Blue is going to start to get more and more proactive. So it will even take the onus of asking Blue off sometimes, like going forward, where you might not think to yourself, man, grocery money would be good. Blue might come up with that idea for you like fairly soon. That's like in the works, which is really exciting.
Nice.
It was also an opportunity to rethink how brands interact with consumers to some extent. So, for example, like the best way right now that you mentioned HelloFresh, we don't have a relationship with them or anything, but say they want to be involved in the lives of cancer patients across Canada. What do they do right now? They probably come up with some kind of ad campaign, maybe like, I don't know, do some like partnership with a nonprofit. But one thing that Blue would allow them to do is say, hey, like, we'll cut your community a special deal on this or something. Our rule of thumb is they have to like legitimately make that patient and family's life better. So they have to give them something to be part of this network. Yeah. So we're trying to add a lot more value to these communities by allowing those brands to also be part of that community. Like if you I love going back 50 years and then going forward 50 years, two things. Like back 50 years, the corner store was helping you.
Yeah,
it truly was. Like there was, at the very least, they're dropping off your groceries if you're sick or injured at home. Yeah, they might even bring them to you for free. That was how it worked way back when.
Giving credit and yeah.
If we go forward 50 years, do we really still believe that brands will be dumping money into Facebook ads? Or will they be trying to literally enter like the hearts and minds of consumers? And to me, the best way to do that is to support someone going through a health challenge, whether it's cancer, liver transplant, spinal injury, whatever have you. To me, that is the future of how brands will engage, is to actually be good members of the community again. And we're going to try to give them that outlet. So that's sort of part of more the business model, but effectively Blue's trying to give that type of community support, like its mojo back, so that it's got this grassroots seamless ability to behave like in a digital community in that way, digital first community anyway.
And I remember you and I talking about this a couple of years ago, but right now, every time you tell me, so of course I think of our supporters, but I also think of some of our community members, survivors who might not have a partner, a friend, a spouse who might be a bit more isolated. And I could still see Blue working like really nicely for them as well, like as a support system.
Sure. I mean, the power of Blue obviously drastically increases the more people you invite into your community. But you can set up your community the way you want it. So if you truly believe that having Blue will help you manage 5 people better, great. I think that's totally cool. But we have people managing 120, 150 people with Blue, and that allows them to go like, oh, okay, random little favor. We had somebody ask, it's a young person, like a pediatric case of cancer. The mother asked, could somebody go and like pull my weeds and mow my lawn this weekend because we're stuck at the hospital all weekend? Somebody picked it up in 8 minutes. Somebody was like, yeah, I'm on it. So I sat there like, that's crazy. That somebody like this, to me, is the ultimate proof that those people are truly motivated to help out, and they just need that one little, oh, I can be helpful just by mowing your lawn. Like, yeah, I'll do that, no problem. Like, that's super easy stuff, low hanging fruit.
And I can see, like, even right now in the days we're living in and COVID, how some of this, for example, this week I did my grocery online and I'll pick it up Tuesday, so even right now, there are even easier ways for people to say, your grocery is going to wait for you on Monday. I'll pick it up for you and I'll drop it at your door. No contact, no stress. I'll do that for you. How easy is it? But if you don't know, you might not think of it. People get caught up in their whole life and the stuff they have to do, so they might not necessarily think of it. But if, you get an app and you get a reminder or an opportunity to help, I think you can jump on it.
If there's one silver lining to COVID, I think that it's teaching everybody how to properly support someone who's immunocompromised. Mm-hmm. I think that, to me, is like at the beginning, the people I spoke to were frustrated because everybody's complaining about all the BS that we've had to live with ever since we got cancer, whatever kind of thing we're dealing with. And now it's more like, I don't hear that as much. It's more like people sort of get it a bit more, not to steal the tagline of the show, but there's an aspect of familiarity that people have now, an element of familiarity, I suppose, where they sort of now know what it's like to, a cancer patient will still live in fear of a common cold, but now everybody knows what it's like to experience that fear. And so if we go forward and say, hey, remember that pandemic 2 years ago? Hopefully we're in that zone in a couple of years. Remember that? That's how I feel every day. And people will go, oh, I get that. That's like, that is the one, it's probably the single greatest opportunity to generate empathy we've ever had as a species. I will say that as a species, because like we can see so much now, like there's so much access to information. Not all of it is great. But we now suddenly, wow, I feel like I just got lit up by the sun.
I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, there's a glint off my forehead, like that would. And I think that is one aspect that I will cling to as a massive positive that will come out of this, is just that, when somebody faces something like that, people will get it a bit better, and they'll be like, oh yeah, masks, gloves, hand sanitizer, all that stuff. The skills are going to be good, but the understanding will be even better, in my opinion. That's the part that's going to be like hopefully much better going forward. The fact that nobody will go to the office again with a cold, that's, at least that to me is a huge win for our society.
I agree. So, all right. So looking at the clock here, let's say someone wants to try this out. How does
Yeah.
that work?
So right now we are in like a pretty limited phase where we're trying to really do this through particular hospitals and nonprofits. So right now, Blue's open to families at BC Children's Hospital. That's one place where we're really focusing in. And as a company, we're willing to do that with a couple more institutions. Maybe maybe you want to help me out with that.
Well,
But if there are people that are interested, I would open that up tomorrow to anybody with Yak. So we can easily do that. And it would just be as simple as shooting one of the two of us an email and saying, hey, I'm from Yak. I'd like to try this out. And then the flow is you get an invitation, you register for Blue. Blue's a web app, so you just need Chrome or Safari or whatever. You can use it on your computer or on your phone or on your tablet. It doesn't matter. There's nothing to download from the App Store.
right.
You register, Blue takes your information, just a little bit, nothing too serious, and then gives you a code. You send that to your friends via Facebook, Instagram, whatever. They sign up, and suddenly you can just start asking for support, and it's all pretty easy from there. We handle everything. So it's pretty simple once it starts. It's just getting that community built, and then suddenly you've got this big resource to use. So yeah, if you're giving me the opportunity to market to Yak users, like, let's go. we can.
I am, because I think we've talked about it a few times, and I saw the value of what you've created from the get-go. But I understand at the same time, for some people, it's like, okay, it's almost kind of learning how or relearning how to figure out ways to ask for help. But for me, over the years, like, you can never underestimate how powerful it can be to feel supported. And not just, to your point, for the big things, but sometimes to just feel like you've got people around you who can actually and are willing and more than willing to do big and small things for you. Then it liberates the space and energy for the stuff that nobody else can do for you. So as supporters, it's like, some of our supporters, they're not going to ask someone else to come and take care of their spouse or partner or their kids for certain situations, but they would take the help on so many other levels, shoveling, like, basic things in Canadian winter. And so hopefully some people are curious enough to ask.
Yeah, I mean, if we had one ambition, it's to let those people focus on what actually matters. Like, you shouldn't, if you're dealing with cancer in your house, you shouldn't have to worry about shoveling snow. Like, if that, again, going back 50 years, if snow fell and the community knew that that household had cancer, it was shoveled before they even looked out the window. Like, and we need to just make it such that that signal is there again for people to contribute in that way. And yeah, I think that there's huge potential to sort of rethink how communities actually even function at a base level. Like, we used to have roads and gathering places, and now we have super highways and social networks, and like, let's exploit those rather than be victimized by them. And that's the ultimate goal, is to really just totally change how that works. So,
and it feels good to give back. Like, I think sometimes we forget how good it feels to be able to help someone you love and care for, or even someone who needs help. Like, to be given that opportunity is so you're helping all around. It's not just, oh my God, I'm such a burden. It's like, you know what? No, actually.
I'll tell you something. Even helping someone you don't know is part of what we are about. And again, we do it on these like smaller things, but sometimes the fundraisers, we allow them to be shared publicly. And we had a young girl with cancer, and this will be familiar to people in this space, but like, I have full rights to share this story, by the way. She's now 19, but she's had cancer for 8 years. So her life kind of like paused in many ways. And one of those ways was that she still has the bedroom of an 11-year-old girl.
Yeah.
And somebody in their community in Blue started an entire fundraiser to like, let's redo her room. Let's give her a full room makeover. And we thought, well, that is so cool. So we as a company jumped on that to help out a little bit. And we had strangers contributing to that from like the UK. This family's in Vancouver, strangers to them. And the emails that we got in response, we gave people an opportunity to give us some feedback. We're like, man, like I felt really connected to that, even though I have no idea who these people are. And that's one thing we try to like distinguish ourselves on, is like, people know that that family that there's no risk for fraud with GoFundMe kind of style things, because this family was brought in by BC Children's Hospital and another cancer charity in BC. Yeah. And we allow people to know that that's the entry point. And so they go, wow, so I'm definitely giving to somebody who needs support. And those people, that was like the highlight of their day for many of them, to give to somebody they've never met and probably will never meet. It's big. It's totally like, people, what you're saying is true. People underestimate how good it feels to actually go and support someone else.
It really does. I love this. Like, to me, in all the grim and challenges and frustrations that, well, cancer brings, and then as we know, many of our community members with the pandemic, like there's been kind of additional layers. To hear this and to even like hear you speak of the perception it gives, to see, like, to me, it's like, let's also see people for the good that they are and for the generosity that is inside of them, and then let's help them give that back when it's possible. I love that. To me, it's like, let's try and show our good side, because people are for the most part, people are quite beautiful, and to give a chance for people to showcase that while helping someone else, that's pretty fucking neat, man.
Very well said. And that is the privilege I'm sure you and I both share, is to get up in the morning every day, and that's our job. Yep. I'd like to be paid a bit more, but that's my own.
Well, let's ask more money, please.
That's we chose this path. Yeah. So we blame ourselves.
It's all right, we're paid in different ways and money will come.
Amen.
Thank you so much. This was really neat. I'll put the information with our conversation, so people can reach out and ask if they have questions and if they're curious and interested. I love what you do. I think you're awesome. I'm really glad our paths crossed, and that you're doing so much good for the world. Like, we need that, more of that, please. So thank you so much, Tom. That was wicked. Do you have any famous last words that you want to drop before we close?
Oh man, that's the kind of thing that gets you in trouble. No, I'm fine.
Wise choice. I've put my foot in my mouth a few times with those. So
I've been so good up until this point. I'm just gonna stop.
You've been really good. So it's like George Costanza. Thank you. Goodbye. Thank you, everyone, for coming, for watching. I hope you've enjoyed our conversation. If you are supporting someone with cancer, if you're a young adult supporting a young adult with cancer, if you're not connected to YAC, please do. You can do this in the email that I'll put there, youngadultcancer.ca. You can check our website and know that we have support for you. And we'll put the information for Blue and for Tom as well. Hope you have a really great rest of the week. It is Monday, I guess, when you watch this. It's always missing with my head because it's not Monday in our lives right now. But hope you have a good rest of the week. And as I remind everybody every Monday, regardless of what's going on right now or in your life or in your day, remember to just breathe. Deep breaths many times a day. Even when things are doing good, it kind of allows us to taste the good a little bit more when we're present. And when things are shit and you feel like it's just not going your way, pause, just breathe. It's going to bring you a little bit of clarity and maybe a bit more of a sense of maybe what to do next. So that's my Monday advice. Remember to breathe. And thank you, everyone. We will see you next week. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.